All right. Welcome, everyone, to the 18th Annual Tallgrass Film Festival. I'm Ryan Johnson, Programming Assistant here at Tallgrass. I wanted to take a moment to thank all of our amazing sponsors for being there for us this year, and anyone else who is out there, for all of you for joining us, watching the films, tuning into the Q&As, and voting for your audience award winners and all that stuff. We couldn't do it without you, so thank you so much for joining us. If you are enjoying yourself, please let everyone know on Facebook and Instagram and all those social media. Make sure you tag us at Tallgrass Film and hashtag Tallgrass 2020. Today with me, I have Brian Benson, writer, producer, director of Eat the Rainbow. Welcome, Brian.
Thanks. Thanks for programming my film. It's an honor to be in the festival.
Yeah, well, we were thrilled to have you, for starters. Obviously, first thing, I notice, obviously, is an old Tallgrass fave. And in the leading role in the co-writing position is H.P. Mendoza.
Yeah,
everyone around here loves H.P. and
he's the one who told me to apply to the festival. He raved about the festival. He said you guys were amazing hosts. He came out, I think, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he came out. I got to spend some time with him. I believe it was just last year. Was it last year? We did Bitter Melon, I think.
Maybe, yeah. Bitter Melon. I was a producer on Bitter Melon.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah. So, I think I feel like it was last year. No,
it might have been the year before. Oh, it was the year before, because then he came back last year as a Filmmaker Advisory Board.
Yes, and he was there with. Was he there with? Anyway.
Yeah, no. So, so I guess first off, where did you and HP hook up, and how did that relationship kind of come about?
It's funny. I saw Colma, the musical, which he wrote and starred in, and a friend of mine sent it to me, and he's like, "You got to check out this movie." And I love musicals, and I loved that musical so much, I became kind of obsessed with HP, and I hadn't even met him. And I'm a filmmaker, and I've been making films and such. Sorry, I'm turning that off. I was at a film festival, and I was waiting for my friend to get in the car, and I was parked in front of this theater, and I was yelling for her, and all of a sudden HP came up to my window. And I'm like, HP Mendoza, what are you doing? And I said, I'm obsessed with you. He's like, I'm obsessed with you. It's one of my films. So we became friends and had always talked about doing stuff together. He was doing Bitter Melon, and I said, I want to help produce it. And then I had, for my film, it's the 10th in a series of films. Short films with my character cousin Wonderlet, and he loves the films. And I was invited to a retrospective in Manchester with my films, Manchester, England. And I told HP I wanted to make another film for this retrospective. He's like, "Let's make it a musical, and I want to help." I'm like, "Okay." So
can't turn that down.
No, of course not. And it was an amazing experience working with HP. And with our composer, Marco D'Ambrosio, the three of us were, it was a very satisfying writing experience with them for the music. And HP was a big part of helping write the film as well. He's a co-writer credit in the movie. He's a very talented person. So
he is.
I was super, honored to be, to do a movie with him. So
I get it. When I'm obsessed with HP Mendoza as well. So,
yeah.
And this film. So I guess, one place I do like to start, and I mean, your list of accomplishments and credits and films is mind blowing. So take us back. I mean, what made you want to make movies and tell stories?
Well, it goes pretty far back. I mean, I'm like 127 years old. So when I was a kid in the 1800s, My dad, I grew up in this small mountain town with nothing to do, and my dad gave me a Super 8 camera. So, film camera. So I for those of you young who don't know what that is, actual film, had to be developed. And I made like goofy little ridiculous movies starting at 8 years old when I was a
Wow.
kid. And then I left the hill, as we call it. I left the mountains and went to UCLA, and I thought I wanted to be, I wanted to study acting. And I realized when I got there, I'm like, yeah, I don't think I have the talent for that. I mean, it was very competitive. It was LA and it was UCLA. So then but I continued to make movies, and I'm like, well, maybe I should pursue filmmaking, and so I actually moved to San Francisco to go to San Francisco State, and started making films up here. I've produced about, I don't know, 15 movies. I've worked on about 35 feature films, in addition to tons of shorter format stuff like commercials or whatever, music videos. But I produced a movie called All About Evil with a San Francisco drag queen named Peaches Christ, who's a pretty formidable talent. I had dressed up as this character to go see an ex-boyfriend in Portland. I was just being ridiculous. I put in glasses and teeth and a wig, and somehow it was transformative. And I took pictures of it or whatever, and I didn't really have a character. I just had a look. And I showed it to Peaches, and she's like, I'm going to put her on stage. If you help me produce my movie, I'm going to put her on stage. So she did, and I started performing, and I created a character, and I was insecure about the live performance aspect of it, so I would make a little movie that preceded the performance, because I knew that I could control the movie, right? Like the live performance is going to do whatever the live performance is going to do. So at least I had the confidence of that, and I had much higher level of confidence making movies than I did live performing. And then I started to get a following as a performer and as my films. And then the last two films in the series of 10 were just films. They weren't part of a performance. So the one you see is probably the biggest, Eat the Rainbows is by far the biggest short film effort I've made in that series. So
I love your alter ego. I love your character of Cousin Wonderlet. So you just kind of fell into that, and it just resonated with you and resonated with Peaches and the audience, and
yeah, I mean, I
kept doing
think
it.
people, I had I mean, I don't have the skills that like, you know, traditional drag queens have, RuPaul girls have. I essentially throw makeup in the air and run under it, and that's my process. I mean, nothing. I've created a character that does not have to be responsible for looking good. She's beautiful on the inside, and I've always liked more of an underdog character as well. I think she's a, I think she's always the wisest and sweetest person in the films, and she's in this film particularly is the least offensive. But before that, she's literally surrounded by a world of shit, and they're much more provocative. They were intended for drunk queer audiences in a bar performing or whatever. So this is a much more like, it's still like there's still, it's still like a childish fable, but it's much more it's substantive. It's a much more substantive thing. Others were just there to shock. So I mean, there's still some shocking elements beneath the rainbow. I didn't want to lose the whole thing. I thought, and once I made this film, I'm like, oh my god, it's such a departure. I don't think that I'm going to have an audience for this.
Oh
So
yeah, like from from the audience that you had already built around that character.
yeah, I mean, I established this character. She's always very sweet, and she's always very, like heart of gold or whatever. She doesn't understand why people call her fat. She's very, she's beautiful on the inside. And just her mother and the world around her is just shit. And shocking. I tried to be shocking or whatever. Well, that, I think the heart of that character carried over to this sort of musical, and some of the elements, some of the shocking elements, but there's provocative prosthetic in the movie. But otherwise, I think it's a pretty, it's the most political. It's the most sincere love story. It's the only musical. So
Yeah. So I mean, you mentioned like a ton of stuff that you've produced and worked on and stuff. I mean, have you gone the musical route before this short?
no,
No, this was like your first go, because
yeah,
it's impressive.
thanks.
It's incredibly well
Well,
done.
that's because they had Adrian Mendoza and Marco D'Ambrosio.
Well, yeah, that helps, right?
Ridiculously talented. I mean, honestly, for musically, I'm the weak link. I mean, I do not have musical talent. You heard me sing, um, and honestly, I was in the tradition of drag, originally lip syncing. I had this guy who has the most beautiful voice sing the part for me, and that's what I lip sync to on set. That's what we played back, and that's what I intended to use. And then once we cut the movie, everyone's like, yeah, that does not match the character. So they're like, why don't you try singing a couple bars? Like the first song in the movie is a little talk singy, but what about all the so there's they're like, just try the talk singy stuff. So I'm like, okay, try. And then they're just like, just try the first bar of singing. So I tried it, and like 2 days later, painstakingly, I'd recorded my own thing. And I still don't like my voice, but it's totally appropriate for the character.
Right,
And
yeah, like you're not, I don't know. I mean, it sounds weird to say, but like you're not expecting some big grandiose thing. Like it works. It's grounded, and I think that totally works.
I did too.
Uh,
They were,
s- Sorry.
but they were right.
Yeah. Always listen. Always listen. They're
Yeah.
always right. Um, So yeah, I mean, this thing just kind of blows my mind at every turn, as far as just like what had to go into the making of this. And I mean, and for starters, I mean, just the cast alone around it. I mean, just kind of, not even including the fact that just so many people involved, learning choreography and all that sort of stuff. But I mean, how do you find that cast, the Lady Bear, or I am just over the moon for April Kidwell as um I keep wanting to call her Lobelia.
Really?
She has like a Kristen Wiig level just like eccentricity to her that is just she's electric in this. I don't know. How did you track down this cast?
She's like a Disney villain. She's like
Mm-hmm.
really big and over the top, and um kind of delicious. Well, I mean, every one of those people, I didn't have any traditional casting session. Every one of those people I knew. April specifically she did a show off Broadway called Showgirls, and she was Showgirls the musical based on the movie,
Oh,
and she was the lead character. And my friend Peaches actually brought her here and was the only sort of only out of New York production of Showgirls the musical. She was so good. I was choking. I was laughing so hard. I went back the next night to see her. She is so amazing with physical comedy. She is such a talent, and she is such a comedian. Um, I told her, after I met her, I'm like, I want to put you in some of my movies. Would you do it? And she said, yeah. I'm like, I'm gonna write a part for you. So, I knew that like she's a great physical comedian. So I'm like, I'm gonna write some face stuff for you. Um, but she was really great. I mean, I'm really happy with the cast I had. Do you know who the woman is? The wise the wise person in at the end of the movie.
no, I saw the name, but I didn't connect it. Who is it?
So that's her name is Dolores Huerta. She is a civil rights icon. She worked for years with Cesar Chavez. Do you know Cesar Chavez?
Mm-hmm.
he started the United Farm Workers Union, was one of the biggest, boycotts, successful, victories in unionizing. And Dolores, who just turned 90, is worked with him, and she won the Presidential Medal of Freedom from Obama, and she's still very celebrated. But I did a documentary about her.
Oh, okay.
That was, it was Carlos Santana's idea, and he paid for it. It was a pretty big project. We premiered at the Sundance Film Festival, and then PBS acquired it and put it in theaters, and we were nominated for an Emmy and won a Peabody Award for it or whatever. But she's, it's about her. She is, she's a very, serious social justice, social rights, civil rights icon. And I think people think she's very serious. And I was very reverent around her. And, I brought out my inner adult. And when I was, working with her, and then I realized when I let my sort of humor come out, my sense, she responded to that. And we became very close friends. And I said, would you ever want to be in a Cousin Wonderlet movie? She's like, sure. So I said, would you do it in drag? She said, sure. So I sent her the script, and she's like, Brian, I trust you. I believe artists are prophets. But I have one comment. She says, because the role was originally a wise man. And she said, does the wisdom in the movie come from a man? And I'm like, oh, you're right. I mean, it's sort of the message of the movie, to be inclusive. And so I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to change it, but I still want you to be in drag. So I'm going to make you non-binary, and I'm going to give you 2 lines. One that says, don't assume that I'm a male because I have facial hair, and don't assume that all wisdom comes from men. So
it's an incredible line. I mean,
it was a great, inspired by her. Yeah, but she's look her up. Do a search for Dolores Huerta, and it's amazing. This film that I was lucky enough to produce, you watch the movie, and she feels like a Latina Forrest Gump. She's been around every president, and she was next to RFK when he was shot. They were on the stand together. He was advocating for the United Farm Workers. They walked off the stage in California at the hotel in Los Angeles, and he was shot, and she was right next to him.
Wow.
She's a historic figure. It's shocking. People watch the movie.
No idea.
People embarrassed that they watch the movie and they're like, oh my God, how do I not know about this woman? You don't know about her because she's a woman, She's, women, especially brown women, women's history, and especially brown people's history, doesn't get told. So, which is the whole point of the movie.
Yeah, and I think I think that's what was so, one of the things that is just so wonderful about it is that you were able to, have this kind of over the top, bright, colorful, like you said, almost like dramatic thing going on, but highlight so many important, just basic elements of just being like a good human being, about being inclusive and not judging people. And what was the line? It was tolerance is not a salad bar. You don't get to pick. And I just love that, because it's like it's for everyone. And so do you find that there is a part of you that wants to utilize this platform that you have to make movies to really just remind people of these things?
I mean, for sure. I also feel like this is my 10th movie, and the others were just about being ridiculous and shocking, and not all. She always had a was the the tenderest part of the movie. um, uh, but they were over the top and ridiculous, and she had a very mean bully mother who got away with shit. And this year, in the last 4 years, I just didn't want to make a movie where bullies got away with stuff. You know what I mean? I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I can't be part of that culture. You know what I mean? So, so I wanted to make something where it was like over, it's usually over the top in the other direction. This time I'm going over the top in the positive direction. It's going to be this big joyous celebration of transformation at the end of the movie. So but I honestly, I after working on Dolores and spending like a lot of my time with her and her family, and as a person of privilege, a white male, seeing the microaggressions, like being present for that stuff, and it was really kind of moving to me. And then also I was a producer and the first assistant director on a movie called Sorry to Bother You, which was an outrageous movie that sort of had a very, very big message in it, but in a with ridiculous story, and I was really influenced by that, having just finished that with Boots Riley, the director. And so I think coming off of those two films really influenced this. I mean, you'll see it's a big change from even the previous movie if you went back and looked at them. It's a much more mature, socially responsible movie.
Yeah.
So, yes, I do, and I do feel like now it's like I feel like the world has gotten so weird, the last, especially this country, and I feel like it's almost irresponsible of me to not have, a say now. I'm not just playing with, poop humor in, in movies. I think it's important. So yes, I tend to use, it as a platform.
Well, it's good, and I think it's all the more incredible if you can fit some poop humor in there and still have a really great message. I mean, it's like you said, like Sorry to Bother You. It's this kind of it's over the top, but it says something, and makes you think. And I think that's the best of both worlds. If you can blend those two things together and make you not realize necessarily that you've got access to all these thoughts and opinions and everything. So
yeah, I mean, if you can make something that's really entertaining, and the byproduct of it is there's some kind of a message in there, I think it's the better way. So it's not too heavy.
Yes.
And I think Sorry to Bother You did that, quite a bit better than I did. But that's certainly, coming off that film was where I was, trying to go.
Yeah. So I don't want to take up all your time today. I know you're busy. So yeah, I mean, I don't even know what to ask. So I mean, what went into how do you even approach the designing the Isle of Birds in Bayani's apartment, and all of the costumes and all of the, I mean, and everything that goes into this film? I mean, there's so much to do. Did you just surround yourself by a ton of amazing people? I mean, how do you even approach that?
I mean, I had amazing people. I do a lot of, I do a lot of movies, and I do a lot of commercial work in the Bay Area. And so I have access to, professionals. I mean, where we shot that bird room was where, Darth Vader got out of the whatever. I mean, they shot, it used to be Lucas's facility.
Whoa.
So a lot of the miniatures and all the like the pirate movies and miniatures were shot there. So they let us use the stage for free. It's not Lucas anymore, Disney. It's privately owned, but they let us shoot there for free. We built, it was a set. And I asked my designer, Olivia uh, Cans, who was just the art director on a movie called The Last Black Man in San Francisco.
Oh, yeah.
And she was also on Blind Spotting, which was shooting at the same time as Sorry to Bother You. She's very talented. And she loves doing this kind of stuff. And she designed my film. And I'm like, look, I told this story when I was a kid. I was super obsessed with Disney, and I cut out like little birds and flowers and stuff and made like the tiki room in my room. And I had a little show, and I had like light brights as lights, and I had like, I had a little string, and I pulled it up, and it pulled this this Tupperware thing with a hole in the bottom, so like water came out and there were flowers all over it, and I had lights and stuff, and I had this ridiculous show or whatever. And I just remember like loving that sort of thing. So I'm like, I'm gonna create this like, like this is where this guy retreats. It's a safe room. It's like there's it's where he finds safety and comfort in this place. And so I told her, I'm like, this is your challenge. This has got to be big and impressive and memorable from when people watch the film. And I think she did a great job, with minimal resources. We had like one day to build that set and a day to shoot it, and then we were out. I mean, not even a day, a half day. But that's where that came from. And then if I assume you were talking about the paper Isle of Birds, because then there's the actual Isle of Birds.
Right. And then yes, the actual Isle of Birds, is that just like a big set as well? Is that, I mean, is it real? Like, where was that?
Literally, I'm in San Francisco, like I'm half a block from Golden Gate Park. It's literally 2 blocks from here.
Really?
It's in Golden Gate Park. And we just came in and dressed it. I was just like, this has got to be lush and colorful. And I mean, I don't even know if you saw it. They even had these details in there. I mean, they put just tons of flowers everywhere, and they just, built it out. But they even had like birds on on like wires that were flying in the background. You could see them like flying from tree to tree or whatever. But yeah, no, that was they did an amazing job. I mean, she really pulled it out. I think, it's a tourist area, Golden Gate Park, and people were coming by and they were looking at it like, oh my God. I think they thought it was part of the, park, that it's like, this is a really amazing area.
The botanical gardens or something.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, you're fine. Well, man, I could hang out and talk with you all day, I think, about this. There's so much more I wanted to cover, but I don't want to keep you too long. So what, anything, like, I know this year's been weird for everyone, but is there anything coming up that you're really pumped about? Anything you want to plug, or you're just generally excited about?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, I am writing another film. I'm actually writing a feature musical, which is with the same team, with HP and Marco D'Ambrosio. But I did just produce a musical that is coming out in next month.
Really?
With 2 RuPaul's Drag Race drag queens, Ben de la Creme and Jinx Monsoon.
Like 2 of my favorites.
They're amazing. They are showgirls. They're theater girls. They're very, very talented. And it's a Christmas show. They are trying to establish themselves as, with this Christmas show, and they've been doing the show on the road, and it's been selling out, and it's been very popular. And this year we're in a pandemic, so they can't do a show. So Ben decided to do a movie. And they called me, Peaches actually. I knew them both. I knew Jinx and Ben because we had performed. Peaches Christ does these send-ups of classic movies like Hocus Pocus. So my character, Cousin Wonderlet, played Danny, the little girl, in a live version of it, and then Jinx and Ben de la Creme were and Peaches were the three witches.
The Sandersons.
So,
Awesome.
so we did, yeah. So we did. Anyway, so I knew them, but so Peaches, like, asked me to just talk to them about this movie, and I fell in love with the script, and I'm like, look, they shot it in Seattle. I'm like, I would love to come up and help with this. So it was great. It's really, there's 9 musical numbers in it, and Ben de la Creme, it's her first film, but she killed it. She killed it.
She's so talented.
She's very talented. They both are very talented. I'm in awe of them both. So anyway,
yeah.
I'm very excited about that. That's coming out in November next month.
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to see it. That sounds great. I know I saw they were traveling around with the Christmas show, and I wasn't able to make it, and I was a little heartbroken because I think they came as close as Kansas City even. Well, that's so cool. Hey, thank you so much for spending some time today and talking with me, Brian. This has been awesome.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. I'm sad that I'm not there in person, that there is no there. But I'm glad that you're continuing on, and I'm super glad to be part of the, have my own project as, part of the festival. Hopefully it's a relationship from here on out.
Yes, absolutely. We'll get you out to Kansas one of these days for sure.
Cool.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for the 18th Annual Tallgrass Film Festival. Make sure you cast those votes for your audience award winners, vote for Eat the Rainbow, and vote for all the other amazing shorts that you've watched, and watch all the Q&As and all that good stuff. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Brian, for being here.
Thank you, Ryan.
Have a wonderful day, all right?
Yes, you too.
Bye.
Bye.